Hey everybody, I just wanted to hop on here and show you how to make an activity out of Packet Tracer that scores itself through their activity wizard. When you open it up, it's pretty daunting looking, but it's really not that bad. We're going to do a simple one here, but you can make these things pretty complex. So what I have here is I have a topology already created, and we've got two little networks here, a 192.168.1 network and a 192.168.2 network. And what I want in this activity is for my students to configure both of these interfaces with IP addresses, subnet masks, and turn the interfaces on, as well as configure the IP addressing for PC1. So what I started with here, and the first thing you will build is the actual final thing that your students will be done with. It's like creating the teacher answer key, right? So this is all working. Everything can ping everything through the router. It all works. So what we're going to do to get started is we'll go to extensions and click on activity wizard. And it says, do you want to use the current network as the answer network? I do, because this is all correct. And so that would be like the answer key. So we'll click yes, and a window is going to pop up. And it is going to look pretty crazy. There's a lot of stuff in here, but you're not going to use everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off we have our answer network and our initial network, and it's really easy to get confused onto which one is which, and you need to make sure when you're making changes that you're not making changes on the answer network, you're making it on the initial network, because that's how they're going to start out. So we're going to flip over to the initial network. That's why I like to do this first, so I don't get confused. And you'll notice it's blank. And so what I need to do is click on copy from answer network, and it's going to copy that network over here, and then I can change it, saying, yeah, it can't be undone. So I'm going to do that and press yes. You'll notice that it copied. I'm going to fast forward down here, get everything going. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do with the initial, we're still on the initial network, and I'm going to stay on here for a little while, is lock some things down so the students don't have access to them to help make their lives a little harder. Under interface, I like to lock down the delete tool, because I don't like them to accidentally delete things. You can lock down as much as you want. It's just if you get too crazy with it, it gets pretty confusing. Under topology and global, I like to lock down the use config tab, because on these devices, if I open this up, I want them using the command line, because that's what I'm teaching them. But if they just go over here and click config, they could go onto an interface, turn it on or off, change the IP addressing on here without ever touching the command line. So I like to lock that down so that they don't have that option. For now, that's pretty good. We'll come back to this, and there's a couple other things I'll show you how to lock down. But that's pretty good for now. So what I need to do now is actually go in, and I'm on the initial network. I just double click it to be sure, and break the things that I want them to fix. So I'm going to go on to R1, and I'll just do it in the config tab just for time's sake. So I deleted the IP address, subnet mask, and I turned the port off. Same thing for this one. Turn it off, delete it. Okay, so R1 is how I want it to start. PC1, I'm going to do the same thing. Desktop, IP configuration. And to clear it out, I just like to do DHCP and then back. That's the quickest way. So now they're going to configure both interfaces on R1 and turn them on, and then configure the IP addressing on PC1. That's kind of this activity. So now I've got the initial network set up. What I need to do now is go over to the answer network, and notice how it changes back, and it's like all looking pretty again. Everything's green. I need to go on the answer network, and I need to tell it what to score. So I know they're going to be doing stuff on PC1. So I'm going to go on PC1. They need to have the default gateway. Under ports and fast Ethernet 0, they need to have the IP address and the subnet mask. Okay, under R1, they need both of those ports. So let me go down to ports. Where are they? There it is. Gigabit 000. We need to have IP address. Port status is the port being turned on. Port status and subnet mask. Same thing for the next one. And you'll see there's a ton of stuff on here. You could mess around with scoring, and you really just need to get on here and play around with it. And you can make some really incredible packet tracers. Let's see, port status and subnet mask. Okay, so I've got everything scoring the way I want. And then the last little piece before we're almost done is instructions. They need to have some instructions. So if you go to the instructions tab, it starts you off with HTML, but in the later versions of Packet Tracer, they've added this rich editor, and you can actually go on here and like it looks nice and neat. I still don't like to type in here because it's a little bit of a hassle. I like to go and create it in like a Google Doc and just copy it and paste it because it looks really pretty. And so that's it. So before, we're gonna test this out. One thing I like to say is it's always good to put a password on this thing because if students open up the activity and go into the activity wizard and there's no password, they can just go ahead and like unscore everything and then get 100 on it. So I don't know if College Board wants us to like all have the same password on these things. If we're sharing them, that might be a good idea, but we can talk about that another time. I'm not going to put a password on this one right now, but let's do this. Let's test the activity. Okay. So I'm just going to keep this on top and just move it over here. So what you'll notice is if I go on here and I try to do this config tab, it's locked, right? So I'm gonna have to go in the command line and watch. You'll see there's a completion percentage here. There is a way to get rid of that if you don't want them to see the completion percentage, because in real life we don't have a completion percentage. There's also this tab that's check results, and they can go on here. Let me close this out. And they can see their assessment items, and they can see all the things that they need to fix or configure. I usually start off letting them have this because they're learning. But when we start getting into troubleshooting, that's the last thing I want, because I want them to be able to find these things that are wrong. And so if they can just click on assessment items and be like, oh, I need to fix this and this, boom, done. Like that's no good. That's no bueno. So I'll show you how to lock that down in just a second. But let me go in here and just watch this completion percentage go up. And this is how you're going to test your activities, because sometimes you'll start it off and it'll have a completion percentage of like 15 and you're like, what's right? And it's something you didn't turn off. So you just need to do that to check. So I'm just going to quickly go in and configure one. It's really funny when the students mistype no shut. And then 2.1 shut. Okay, so I'm at 66, and then I'm going to go to the PC, and we're going to do this, 2.8, 1.10, and then the default gateway. And this should end me up at 100 because I did everything, and boom, 100. So we're good. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go back to the activity wizard. I'm going to show you a couple of last minute things before we save this and just look at it one final time. So let's go to the answer network, and let's go over to up here, settings. And one of the things, if we do no dynamic feedback, I believe that will get rid of, let's test it out, the percentage. Yeah, boom, it's gone. So that's how you get rid of that if you don't want that percentage. So mean. And then I'll go ahead and put it back on there. And then I like to do user profile locking and no guest profile, and I'll show you that when I open the activity after I save it. But basically, it means when the student opens the activity, it forces them to type in their name and save it as a user profile. And so if they try to save that finished file and give it to another student to turn in, it's going to have the previous student's name on it. And if that new cheating student wants to change it to their name, it's going to actually reset the activity. So they have to do it all over again. It's not 100% foolproof. I mean, they could have the other student do it under their name, and then but it's a roadblock and a hassle. So I like to do that and then force them to have their name on it. Okay, so it looks like we're done, and I am going to save this activity. and I'll just save it on my desktop, and I'll just call it IP address. And it's going to save it as a packet tracer activity file. So save. Yes. Okay. So let me open that. Open. And we're going to go to, no, not downloads, desktop. IP address here. Okay. Yes, exit. This is what it'll look like when the students open this up. And there's the little guest. Now it will not let them put in guest. If I do this, it's going to say not valid. So they need to put their name in. And it'll start the activity, right? Now now they can do the activity and it'll score, and then they can save it and turn it on. But let's say, like, hey, Mr. So-and-so wanted to use somebody else's activity. Well, if they go on and say this is completed and they wanted to change the name to Mr. Bill, and they clicked OK, oh, I'm going to turn in this activity that is somebody else's, but it's now my name, it's going to reset the entire activity for them. So that's a cool little feature. That's all I can think of on here. I may post some other videos that are maybe a little more advanced, but I feel like this is a good starting point to get you guys going on just creating some of your own activities. And just play around with that little answer network and see what you can score and what you can, how you can make those activities for those students. So hope this helps, and have a great day.